Hi, I'm Waka Kele. I'm speaking to you from the beautiful city of Cebu in the Philippines. You probably don't know about me. Excuse that, that's my friend's phone. I've been an aviator and a gold miner and a rugby player, and those are my passions. I'm not here today to talk about anything else than gold. I've mined for gold all over the world, in Africa, deepest, darkest Congo, West Africa, South Africa, and in the north in Algeria and Morocco. I've mined in South America, Central America, and North America, and I've been in Russia. And more recently, I was invited to the DPRK, Democratic Republic of North Korea, where I signed the first gold venture in 80 years in Pyongyang, and it was a historic event. I'm not really here today to tell you about that. I'm here to tell you what could be the greatest story ever told, the legendary Yamashita gold. I'll tell you all about General Yamashita, who he was, what he was, but let's rewind the story a bit to the story of Roger Rojas and the Golden Buddha. Roger Rojas was a gentleman who lived in Baguio, in Luzon province in the north of the Philippines. He was a locksmith at the local market, next to a banana store, and in the weekends he was an amateur treasure hunter, and he formed an organization called TAFI, Treasure Hunters of the Philippines, and it had an affiliation with a similar organization in the States. One day Roger received a knock at his door. When he answered the door, there was a well-dressed Japanese man in a suit who presented him with a map. Roger invited him inside to his house, and the man explained that his father had given him this treasure map, and that his conscience was now clear, and he left, and he was never seen again. In this country, there's a whole cottage industry of treasure maps and fake gold. It's become a very, very interesting scenario in the quest for gold. Roger, for some reason, had an inkling that this could be something real. He had no money, but he summoned 16 men, and just before Christmas, they started to follow the map and look for this treasure. And the treasure supposedly was a golden Buddha and several chocolate bars. Chocolate bars are the size of this mobile phone. They're little pieces of gold. They're 22 karat, because that was the gold standard then. And it was said that there was hundreds, if not thousands, in this tunnel. They searched and they searched, and they had frustration when they ran out of money and they had to employ native labor. But just on Christmas Eve, they burst through a concrete bunker, and there, gleaming in the dark, was the legendary Golden Buddha. It took the 16 men to carry out the Golden Buddha. They took some gold bars, and then they dynamited the entrance to the tunnel and carried the Buddha back to Roger's kitchen, where they covered it with a tablecloth. You have to remember, Roger was a simple man who was a locksmith in the local market, and here he was sitting on gold at that stage in the 70s, I think was around $60 an ounce. So he had no other option, but he wanted to sell it, but he didn't know how. So he made inquiries, if you can believe it, around the market. He had some interested parties, of course, but the most interested party were the police. And within a couple of days, they swooped on the Golden Buddha at Roger's house and took it away. What I didn't tell you was that when they got it back to the house, they found the neck was detachable, and inside the Buddha were 3 scoops, handfuls of diamonds. The Buddha was taken away, and Roger never saw it again. This is 1971. He was with a friend of mine called Mr. O'Malley, Albert O'Malley. Both of them were imprisoned and tortured, and Roger sadly lost his eye during part of his torture. And they were in prison for 2 years. All of this time he had written to the press and complained, and Ferdinand Marcos, who was president at the time, this was just before martial law, produced a Golden Buddha, and which he proclaimed was the Buddha that Rojas found. It was made of brass, and it didn't quite look the same. Truth is, it was a replica. It wasn't quite the same because it wasn't the Golden Buddha. The neck didn't tilt quite rightly, but Ferdinand presented this, proclaimed Roger as a fraudster, and he was in prison, and as I said, he never saw the Golden Buddha again. Years went by. Ferdinand went to Hawaii, we all know, in exile with Imelda, family friends, and Roger sued Imelda and Ferdinand in the Hawaii Supreme Court for the recovery of the golden Buddha and of the gold ingots, and was awarded the unbelievable sum, which is a record settlement in US history, of $42 billion. On appeal, it was reduced to a one-shot deal of $22 billion. So that's our story. Now let's rewind a little bit. Where did all this treasure come from? It goes back 200 years with the rape of Asia by the Japanese. But in 1895, Japanese intruders burst into the Korean royal palace, assassinated Queen Min, stabbed her repeatedly, and took over all of the assets. With the help of underworld organizations, all sorts of people, including major Japanese banks, and we'll name them in this documentary, over the 200 years, they amassed a fortune. In 1942, the war was well underway, and Hirohito decided to store some of the plunder into the Philippines. Singapore had fallen, Java had fallen, Indonesia had fallen. The Japanese looted every bank and every house in Singapore. The Philippines had fallen, the Philippines were occupied. And so it was decided by General Yamashita to bring the gold to the Philippines by submarine, by boats, and in fake hospital ships. And we'll show you pictures on this documentary that we're making of all of these modes of transport. Everything that I talk about today and in the documentary will be 13 episodes long. We will prove and evidence what we have. So we're talking about the treasure, where it was stored. Pier 15 Manila was groaning and creaking with treasure, and it was hidden under the palace and in 35 miles of tunnels that were dug by POWs. I'll also tell you how Yamashita was hung without trial. He appealed to President Truman in 1946, but he was hung. Kojima, his driver, was tortured under General Lonsdale, and a great proportion of treasure was recovered and shipped to America. But a lot wasn't. Some of it was sent to 173 banks in 43 countries. The bulk of the treasure is still here. When Ferdinand Marcos became president, he brought a Swedish psychic to the Philippines called Olaf Johnson, and we'll tell you all about Olaf Johnson and the recovery of the treasure, some $40 billion worth of treasure. So this is going to be a great story. We'll keep you informed, we'll evidence everything that we have. It'll be a 13-episode series. So watch it. I'll be doing a vlog, probably under the golden Buddha.